The viewers might experience poor audio and video clarity due to webcast from home. Request you to please stay connected to your internet and check your internet connectivity. We have an interesting topic for you today: understanding human behavior for better relationships. And to take you through this, we have Ms. Urjita Deshpande. Ms. Urjita Deshpande is a clinical psychologist and a behavioral skills trainer with an overall experience of 15 years. She has an expertise in behavioral trainings, psychometric testings, and psychological counseling. She is associated with various corporates across industry verticals, including healthcare. She has been recognized for creating and stimulating interactive learning environments. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Priyanka.
For the convenience of everyone, we would like to take up the questions at the end of the session. Request you to please post your questions in the Q&A. Now, without much of a delay, I would like Urjita ma'am to take over the mic. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Priyanka. A very good afternoon to every one of you. I'm sure it's afternoon time, a lazy time, where we have just had our lunch. So definitely I'll try to make the session more interesting along with informative also. So today, as we have said, we are going to talk about human behavior, understanding relationships, right? And for that, we are going to use one tool, and that tool is called as transaction analysis. Now, let me just quickly give you a brief of this transaction analysis tool. It was developed by Dr. Eric Berne in 1960. He was an American psychiatrist. Now, when he used to talk to his patients and when he spoke to different kinds of people, he realized that there are different personalities in the same person. And he realized that it has nothing to do with split personalities, right? And that is where he started studying that from where did so many personalities come in one individual, where he gives different kinds of responses to different people and reacts in a different way in different situations. And that is where the whole lot of study happened with different psychiatrists and psychologists coming together, and they have developed this tool called as transaction analysis. So in earlier days, this tool was generally used only by people in the healthcare industry like psychiatrists or psychologists, but looking at the benefits of it, they realized that this tool should not only be used by these selected set of people, but it has to be, this knowledge has to be transferred to general people also, because it can be used in our day-to-day life to understand our relationships. And that is the reason today transaction analysis is also used in different industries as a leadership program. It is also used in different corporates for understanding ourselves and understanding our relationships, right? So now this transaction analysis actually helps us to understand that why we think, act, and feel the way we do. It helps us to understand why different people, have different types of behaviors or, different types of mentalities. It can also help you to reduce your conflicts in relationships, whether it is in your professional life or whether it's in your personal life. And yes, definitely you need to put a little bit of effort in understanding it and to practice it, because nothing comes, without efforts, right? So if you practice it sufficiently, definitely it's going to bring a visible improvement in your productivity. Because ultimately, as it is said, that more than talent and expertise, it's also our interpersonal skills that matter the most when it comes to our professional success. So now quickly, let us see what exactly is this transaction analysis. Right? Now, transaction analysis theory says that there are 3 different personalities in each one of us. So technically, when 2 people are interacting with each other, it's not 2 people, it is 6 personalities who are actually having an interaction with each other. So what are these 3 personalities in all of us? One is the parent personality, which we have acquired from our parents. One is the child personality, which we have understood as a child in our childhood days. Don't worry, I know it must be a little bit confusing for you as of now. I am going to explain everything. Adult personality is that matured self in us, right? So we have these 3 different personalities in us. And generally it is said that our parent and the child personalities were developed when we were 1 to 5 years of age. Yes, 1 to 5 years of age. So whatever recordings have happened or whatever we have learned during our first 5 years of our life, are influencing us even today, whether the person is 40, 50, 60, or 80 years. Whatever happened in that person's life in the first 5 years definitely do have a heavy impact. Now, whether that person remembers it or no, is aware of it or no, that's a different story. Right now, definitely the changes are going to happen because we grow, we are exposed to different kind of situations and different kind of learning and different set of people. So definitely we have changed also as a person, and we keep shifting between these three personalities during one interaction. Maybe we can shift from one personality to other. Now let us talk about this parent personality. Now, as you will see in this slide, these personalities are also called as ego states. Now, instead of ego states, maybe we can use this word emotional bodies, okay, so that it becomes more easy for us to understand. So now, from where did this parent ego state or parent emotional body come into us? So we have recorded everything that our parents said to us, whatever they believed, whatever they behaved, whatever they advised us, whatever rules and regulations. So you can say 100% today we are the replica of our parents, good as well as bad. So whatever good behaviors, good way of dealing that they had is completely there in us, as well as certain wrong things which they did to us are also there with us, or wrong ways they had to handle certain relationships or certain things in their life, that also has come into us. I'm sure you all must have realized that, and in certain situations at times, we behave like our father, or at times, behave like our mother. Or when we get into conflict with our spouse, our spouse might say, no, see over here, you simply behave like your mother. Right now, why these all traits have come into us very subconsciously. Now, these are all the recordings. Transaction analysis theory says that we have recorded all these imprints. Okay, and this recording happened automatically without any editing, because I'm sure at the age of 1 to 5 years, we didn't even have much of vocabulary nor understanding. So suppose if a child has witnessed that his father has come back home, he's very upset because maybe he had a loss in his business or something, terribly, maybe he was fired from the job. Now he comes home and he's in a really bad mood and he starts shouting and he starts fighting, or maybe he will throw things. Now the child does not know what has happened to him or why he is behaving like this. He simply has recorded into his mind or his brain that when you're upset, you can behave like that. I can throw things, I can shout at people, right? So this is how our recordings have happened automatically. Now, every smallest aspect of the personality, as I said, good or bad, of our parents have come into us. Now, when we talk about a parent figure, it need not be our direct parents every time, because many times children are being brought up by maids, they're being brought up by grandparents, or they might be brought up in a joint family where there are different people who are influencing him in a parent role. So when we talk about a parent personality, it can be either your direct parents or any person who has taken care of us majorly during our first 5 primitive years of our life, right? So this is how our parent personality has emerged in us. Now let's talk about this child ego state first. The child ego state or the child emotional body completely depends on how we felt in our first 5 years of our life. That is, suppose when we made some mistakes, how did our parents react to it? Where they, did they punish us? Did they scold us? Did they humiliate us? Or did they, say that it's okay, you can try it next time? How did they react to our mistakes or to our failures or when we did not meet their expectations? Everything has got recorded. And now, based on those recordings, we have started getting that feeling that whether am I okay or means I'm okay, means I'm good, fine, I'm confident. Why? Because maybe my parents never scolded me. They always, said it's okay, you can try it next time, it's a big deal. Or a person can develop this feeling of I am not okay, right? And I am not okay means, now this person will be a 40 or 50 years, but still that small child in him will always tell him that I am not okay. Every time he would want to do something good or he want to take certain risk, but that I am not okay recording is always going to work in his head, right? And these are all the subconscious recordings that have happened. Again, just like our parent ego state, our child recordings also have happened absolutely automatically. We had no control over it. right? Now, the adult ego state. This adult ego state is that particular emotional body which has always tried to make sense of our environment. You will see a small baby, suppose 1 or 2 years, if you give it a glass or if you give it keys. Now it's going to look at those keys, it will try to chew that key, it will try to make sense of what is this actually, what is the sound that gets created if I throw it. So they're constantly trying to make sense of their surroundings, right? And this adult is only one adult ego state which continues throughout our life. So this is going to continue till we die, because you will see even today we are trying to make sense of things, right? So if you are into any kind of a profession, definitely you will try to gather more information, you will try to improve yourself, you will try to learn more about how you can do a much more better job, you will try to update yourself. So this is the adult inside you which is trying to update and which is trying to make sense of your surroundings. It completely depends on logic, analysis, proofs, and everything. It is also one good thing about the adult that it will always try to undo, or not exactly undo, but it will always try to understand that why I behave like this. Many a times you must also have realized it. Ki suppose if your one of the colleague has made some mistake and you scold that person. While scolding that person, you realize that you shouldn't be scolding him or you shouldn't be saying these kind of things to him, but still you tend to do that. So it is actually that adult inside you which is trying to stop you, or which is trying to tell you that don't say such kind of things, right? So these are how our adult, child, and the parent personalities are there into us. Now let us see how do these personalities or ego states behave into us. So first let us talk about the parent personality, that how does this parent personality affect in us. Now you will see that in every ego state there is one good personality and one bad personality. So how has this nurturing parent come into us? Definitely by watching our parents only, because you must have realized our parents were also very caring, encouraging, supporting, loving. They gave us whatever we asked for, or they were very helping. So if you had some problems, they would help you. So definitely we all have that nurturing parent personality in us, that whenever we see that somebody else requires help, we are more than happy to give that person help, or we try to take care of others. So this is the nurturing parent that is definitely there in us. But along with that, we also have a controlling parent, which again, we have seen our parents doing it. That is disciplining, judging, compelling, that you have to do this, you must do this, shoes have to be outside the house, or you have to wash your hands before you eat your food, right? So this was all the controlling no parent that we have all experienced. And today, this controlling parent is also there in us, not only with regard to our children, but also in our professional life. With grown-ups, we can do that. So for example, as a boss, I might, just be more disciplined, and I would want my subordinates also to have that discipline, or I might scold them at times, or I might question them that why did you come late to the office? Why are you doing the work like this? Or I might ridicule somebody, or I might be very direct with my criticism with somebody. So this controlling parent is there in us, and the nurturing parent is there in us. Now, what will be more dominant completely depends whether I'll be more of a nurturing parent or I'll be more of a controlling parent. Completely depends on what was my recording in my childhood days. Right? So I hope you're getting this point. Definitely all these factors or these two parameters are in each one of us. The only thing is, which one is going to be more dominant completely depends on our recordings of 1 to 5 years of age. Now let us talk about this adult ego state. Now, the good part of this emotional matured adult is it always try to be stable in the crisis situation. You will see that even today, if there is some crisis situation, there are some people who will simply become very panicky, or they might become very anxious. But there are some people who will completely be stable and they can deal with the situation in a proper way. These people, or this kind of a personality is there in us, that at times we don't want to blame people, or we don't complain. We can deal with the conflicts. Okay, so now emotionally matured adult is that particular adult in us which is very open minded, non judgmental, is emotionally stable. It is interested in self development. So we would like to know, like the fact that you are attending this session today itself shows that that emotional matured adult factor has compelled you to listen to this particular session today, because maybe somewhere you were interested in the topic and you were interested in knowing, you find how I can improve my relationship, right? So be happy that today your emotionally mature adult is working right now. So this is the matured adult in us, but at times the negative aspect of this adult is that these people can be workaholics. They just want to be obsessed with their work, or obsessed with whatever they will do. They are highly logical people, because as I said, ki adult is always trying to make sense. So at times these people will be just too logical about everything in their life. Now it can be very difficult to convince an adult person who's obsessive to a negative side of the personality. They will get convinced only by certain set of people. So suppose if you're trying to convince me something, it will be very difficult for you. I will believe only certain set of people in my life. So if the same advice is coming from those XYZ number of people whom I consider good, maybe I will listen to them. I might not listen to anybody, right? So this is the drawback of the adult personality, but the benefits are much more. Now let's see, how does this child state or child emotional body develops in us. One part of our child personality is this, ki we have a very natural child in us, which is very intuitive, curious, playful, cooperative, excited, artistic, fun loving. Now when does this child come up in us? Especially you will see that when you're sitting with your friends, okay, when you tease each other, or you are just trying to make fun of each other, or you have gone for some picnic, you become a small child and you want to do all that trekking, or you want to dance, or you want to do some funny silly things, or at times when you're doing your hobby activities, our face glows like a small child. So there is this natural child in all of us which does show up sometimes. Now there is this some concept called as adaptive child. Now, adaptive child is a little bit, you can say, a poor child, because it's very disciplined, and it's always trying to please people. It's always trying to please the authority figure. As a child, this particular child would have listened to everything that his parents said, or he must be a highly disciplined person. So this adaptive child will never resist. He can feel guilty very quickly. So even if suppose you make a small mistake and your boss will simply point out ki this is the small correction, now they're going to feel guilty, or they might feel anxious about it. Ki how could I do that, right? These children, or this child, generally has low self-esteem, is very disciplined, is like a yes boss person. He will never retaliate, never refute. So whatever task has been given to them, they will do it. They're very obedient people, as I said, pleasing others. So it can be pleasing their family members, pleasing their office people, pleasing their friends. These are the people who will never be able to say a no, right? So this child is also there in all of us to more or less degree. Now comes the rebellious child. Now, rebellious child are like stubborn. They're very stubborn. Ki, I will do it and things have to be my way. These are more of complaining. They can be aggressive. They can be bullies. They are more self-centered. They will just think of themselves. They can shout. They can create tantrums. They can be lazy or lethargic at times, right? So now you will see that all these three aspects of child again do exist in us. Now the point again is that which one is more dominant completely depends on our recordings that have happened in our first 5 years of the life, right? So I'm sure by now you must have understood what are the different parameters of these personalities. And as I said, we for sure have parent, child, and adult in us, and good and bad, everything. Yes. Now, how do we actually use this transaction analysis into practice? So let us understand there are actually two type of transactions that generally exist in our life, whether it's our professional or our personal life. One is the complementary transaction, where whatever you receive the response, it was expected by you. Okay. So suppose if you told your subordinate that please keep this file ready by 3 o'clock, I'm going to come and review it, right? And your subordinate says, yes, sir, sure, I'll do that. So now this was like a complementary transaction. There was no conflict at all in any of this. So now any transactions which go smooth, where there are no conflicts, can be labeled as complementary transactions. Whereas the crossed or the blocked transactions are where you receive the response which you had not expected. Okay, so for example, you tell your subordinate, please keep the file ready at 3 o'clock. I want to come and review it. And now suddenly your subordinate says, no, sir, I'm going to go on leave. By 1 o'clock, I'll be leaving. I had already informed. So now this was not the response that you had expected. Your expectation was that he would say, yes, sir, sure, I'll do it. But the response was something different. Now, this is where the interactions start falling apart, right? So transaction analysis has to be used in such kind of situations. Now, let us see some more examples, right? Now, let us imagine that the three circles is one person, that is the manager to your left side, and the other person to your right side, the employee. Okay, now this manager is asking from his parent ego state, why are you late? Because such kind of questionings are generally done by the parent ego state, right? Disciplining is the department of parent. So now suppose this manager is asking from his parent ego state that why are you late to your shift? And the employee, suppose if he answers that, sir, I'm sorry for being late, will make sure that I'm on time, from now on. Now, this is a complementary transaction that the employee accepted that mistake and he said, okay, fine, from tomorrow, it will not happen. But suppose if, it would have happened in a different way, the conflict would have occurred, right? Now, the complementary transaction, let us look at another example. Suppose your employee is saying from the child ego state, because that child is a vulnerable state also, the adaptive child, remember? So suppose if the employee is asking that manager that, sir, I have a problem. Can I talk to you for some time? And the manager says, yes, yes, sure. You're looking upset today. I was just about to ask you what's the matter, right? Now, again, this is a very complimentary transaction. Why? Because the employee expected exactly the same kind of a response, which was received by him. And similarly, in this first example, the manager exactly received the response that he was expecting. So when you receive a answer that was exactly what you expected, things are going perfect. That is complementary transaction. Now, transaction analysis ka dusra part, that is the crossed and the blocked transaction. So suppose the same first example we take, that the manager said, why are you late to your shift? And suddenly the employee tries to answer that employee X also comes late to work. You never ask her, you always ask me. Now, obviously, this answer has come from her rebellious child. That why every time you ask me? Now you will see, obviously the manager is not going to be happy by this answer. So definitely now the transaction is going to now go all the more crazy over here. And then the manager might get into his wrong parent mode again. That who are you to tell me that, what I should be asking and what I should not be asking, right? So it's such kind of transaction where you expected a certain response, but you get something weird response, is called as a crossed or a blocked transaction. And this is where now we have to use our whole information of transaction analysis, because transaction analysis completely says of how you can make your crossed transactions into complementary transactions. Let us look at the another example that we saw. Now the employee is, saying that, sir, I have a problem. Can I talk to you for some time? And the manager maybe was upset, maybe he had already fired two people and he was not in that correct state of mind. And suddenly when the employee tells him that I have a problem, sir, can I talk to you? Now he snaps. He snaps at the employee by saying that you always have some or the other issues. When are you going to learn to keep your family problems aside? I'm simply fed up of your attitude. Now, definitely, this was not the response which the employee had expected. And now, again, the crossed and the blocked transaction is going to happen with it, right? So now, I guess with these two examples, it has become a little bit clear to you that how the transactions start failing. And our whole theory is how you can convert these cross transactions into complementary transactions. Now I have made your job easy to understand the good ego states and the not good ego states. I have just differentiated. Remember one thing: whenever you're operating from your good ego state, you will never be into conflicts, right? So suppose if there is a nurturing parent inside me which is asking that why are you late to your shift, and even if I get some weird answer, and if I try to remain into that nurturing parent, I might not allow that conflict to become crossed or blocked, right? So similarly, any of these good ego states, the more you remain into these good ego states, the less likely you're going to get into conflict. The moment you get into this not good ego state, that is on a commanding parent. So as a boss, suppose if I am always into this commanding kind of a parent, that why are you doing like this? I had asked you to do the work like this. Why didn't you do it like this? Every time, you have to give me some excuses. Now remember, the more we are going to be in this commanding parent, the more we are going to land up in problems. It can also be into that obsessive adult or a rebellious child, right? So now you will see this adaptive child has been put into the good ego state also, and the not good ego state also. So the reason for it is key adaptive child, for the other person it's always good, because as an adaptive child, if that adaptive child is dominant in me, I will never say no to people, I will always obey, I will always agree, right? Because there is a need for me to please others. I want others to say that yes, Urjita, you're so good and you're so nice. But at times, this adaptive child can also lead to a lot of frustration in me, which I might at times, with my own people show out in the form of rebellious nature, or I can do some self-harm because I'm frustrated by pleasing people. I'm constantly into that mode of doing certain things in my life, which maybe I didn't want to do, but just because I didn't have that power in me to say a no, now it starts affecting me. So that is the reason it has also been put into that not good ego states. Now let us see how we can, correct or how to use this transaction analysis. Now suppose if you realize that some person with whom you're having an interaction is into that parent ego state, and suppose they are into that commanding parent state. So now how do we behave with them so that we can, avoid the conflicts with them? So first thing is not to be bossy with them, because obviously when we boss around with our commanding parents, for sure shot, it's just going to lead to fireworks, right? Do not argue, just agree, because there is no other alternative at that point of time. They are likely to get triggered very quickly and they can go on and on. So do not react to their emotional drama. Don't add on. Don't irritate them more. Don't irritate them more. Be disciplined and organized in front of these people, because you know that otherwise they are going to get triggered. At times allow them to take charge, because parents are always wanting to take charge. That's how the parent mentality is. Allow them to take care of you, because there is a nurturing side to them also, right? Give them the credit if they have done something really good to you. So if they have, contributed in your life in some way, they have taught you something, they have helped you in some way, make sure that you have given that credit to them. Now at times, suppose if a parent ego state person is your subordinate, now though he is a subordinate, but still he can have a dominant parent ego state. Now such kind of people will always have rigid ideas of how they would want to do the work. So even if you try to convince them, maybe they will not get convinced. So now with these kind of people, you have to be really tactful so that you can convince them. And definitely the last point is, do not hurt their ego, because commanding parents just don't like when they are questioned or when they are refuted or when their ideas are rejected. Okay, so now when we talk about this parent ego state, you will realize, suppose if I give you this example, ki, they just want a yes boss wala person in front of them. So suppose if it's a parent or a mother who's telling a 5-year-old child, ki, see, we are going for this party, please wear this dress. Now the child has gone into her adult ego state and she tells her mother, ki, no mom, I don't like this dress, I think I will wear this dress. Now suddenly what happens is, this commanding parent erupts into this mother and she says, every time you have to do this, nothing doing, you are going to wear this dress. So now what happens is, commanding parent only requires a adaptive child or a good matured adult. They cannot handle another commanding parent personality in front of them, right? Now let us see how to use this adult ego state. The adult ego state is a very, as I said, emotionally matured person. They will try to diffuse the conflict that arises between the two ego states. Now, these two ego states can be between the same person, or it can be in two different people. So how can two ego states be working at the same time in the same person? Let me give you an example. Suppose I am the boss and one of my subordinate has come late, and she always comes late. So now that commanding parent in me will come up and will try to say that, oh, every time she does this, now today I am going to fire her left and right. How can she behave like this? This behavior is not done. But at the same time, that adaptive child inside me is also, erupting, which says ki, no, no, don't shout at her. If I shout at her, and what if she leaves? What if she leaves my job? Then I don't have any other person as of now. Then, it's going to be a problem. And what if other people are also going to get hurt? Now, these two, this commanding parent and this adaptive child in me, are in conflict with each other. So now the adult inside me can come into picture and actually diffuse that conflict between two by counseling me and telling ki, no, definitely her behavior is not acceptable. I have to tell her that this behavior is not done. But at the same time, instead of shouting, can I do it properly? So fine, this adult helps me to understand how I can deal with this situation. So what I do is I listen to my adult, and then I call her into my room, and then I can tell her that this behavior is not done. Right? So adult will always help you to diffuse this parent and the child, which are wrong ego states that are operating. So that is why they say that developing adult is the key to improving your relationships and you. They are, because they're emotionally very stable people, they are an asset to the organization, because you will see whenever, suppose if two people are fighting, these are the people who will always, make sure that these two people now stop being in conflict with each other. But at the same time, today as human beings, we don't have that much of patience that, we can go on and on with our adult state. If suppose, I'm saying a sorry to somebody, but still if somebody is shouting at me, there is a possibility that now from that matured ego adult state, I might just get into my rebellious child or my commanding parent. So that is why they say that if someone is showing you the maturity to diffuse the conflicts, just stop yourself over there. Otherwise, that adult can simply get into his parent or the child ego states. How do you deal with this child ego state now? Natural child. You will see these natural child personalities in your office. They will be generally very enthusiastic, happy-go-lucky, fun-loving people. Okay, they generally make the atmosphere very stress-free. So if there is a lot of tension in your workplace, or if something bad has happened with you, these are the people who can come and lighten up the environment near you, right? So that is the good part of them. Now, because there is this natural child in them, they generally can, make mistakes, show a little bit irresponsible attitude towards work. But appreciation can do the work for you, because you will realize that, as small child, when he draws something, and the moment you appreciate it, they just love it. They want to draw more and more now, right? Now, this same tendency exists even in a person who's 40 or 50 years. If they are making mistakes, or if they are showing irresponsible attitude, and if you realize that he is a person who has more of a dominant natural child personality, try appreciation. It can help you reduce the conflicts, because if you do not appreciate such kind of people, then there is a possibility that, they might lose all the more interest and start making all the more mistakes and be, more irresponsible, right? Now, respect their curiosity and creative ideas. The reason for this is, suppose if you're having a meeting and there is this natural child, a kind of a personality sitting in your meeting, and he gives you some ideas. Maybe, yes, that idea was not practical, maybe not even, something that was possible and feasible to be implemented. But if you just refute their ideas, believe me, these natural child people will stop giving you ideas. Remember, these are the people who are very creative. Maybe at some point of time, if you do not discourage them, they might end up giving you some wonderful ideas which can help you from the crisis situation, or which can help you to innovate something new and different in your organization or your department, right? So basically, natural child have to be taken care of. Little bit of appreciation, encouraging the curiosity and creative ideas will do the work. There is this adaptive child. Now be very sensitive to this adaptive child, because they are very sensitive people. So whenever you give them any kind of a feedback, be sure that you're not using harsh words. You're not shouting or blaming them, because they cannot handle pressures and they cannot handle stress. They get anxious very quickly. While criticize them, make sure that you have also told them about some of their qualities, because remember, adaptive child has lot of low self-esteem. So given that low self-esteem, now if you're only going to give him a negative feedback and only criticize him, it's going to lead to more errors and more lack of productivity. So if you really want some kind of a productive work done from such kind of people, then make sure that you appreciate them. They are already in fear, okay, all the time. But if suppose they make a small mistake and you scold them, be sure that they're going to make more mistakes, because in fear a person can make only more mistakes. They cannot be good in their work, right? So adaptive child needs a little bit of nurturing parent kind of a person in front of him. Now this rebellious child. So as we have seen, rebellious child love to argue all the time. They love to give excuses. They love to argue. So the moment you realize that you have, said something to your, suppose, not the same example we take, that suppose if I ask my staff member that why are you late? And now she has started arguing with me that, every time, you ask only me, you never ask her. Okay. Now be sure that if I get into my commanding parent and if I start fighting with her or shouting at her, this particular rebellious child employee is going to argue more, is going to complain, and she is not going to stop there. She is going to go and tell her other people, that this lady always does this to me. Every time she has to watch me only. He comes late, she comes late, but she never tells them or asks them. She will always ask me. So now they can go on and on with their this, behavior. So with these set of people, you simply have to be more assertive and strict. Do not push them into arguments, because at times, they can be aggressive verbally or physically. Iska, one of the more examples is, suppose people driving on the road, two cars meet with an accident. The person in the front comes and says, I'm sorry, but one person says, what sorry? And they can actually even get into fights. So a person who can actually get into some kind of a physical aggression is, having more of a rebellious child dominantly playing in them, right? So you will see, even if the conversation or the interaction with any person is for 1 or 2 minutes, in that 1 or 2 minutes also we keep shifting. We will keep shifting in our ego states depending on the responses that we get from another person. And then there is possibility that at times, it was going into a complementary transaction, but suddenly some response came and it simply went into a cross transaction, right? There is a possibility. Many a times you must have seen, suppose, during the lunchtime, you all colleagues are having your lunch together and it's a fun atmosphere, and you say, you crack a joke, and suddenly you get some kind of a criticism from one of your colleagues. And now suddenly from that natural child of that playful mood, you can get into a wrong state of child, a rebellious child, right? There is a possibility. So when you observe your behavior, you will come to know that even in that 1 minute of interaction, we are just, shifting. So now how do we use this transaction analysis? So as it says that yes, complementary transactions are smooth. So go ahead with them, no problems with them. But the moment you encounter a cross transaction, the only way to get it back to a constructive place is to shift your ego state. And as I have already told you, that the more you operate from your good ego states, the less you will get into conflicts with people, right? And usually it's best to shift to the adult ego state, because that adult ego state will always, help you to diffuse the other conflicts around you, right? And lastly, as it says, be more aware of what the other person needs. Does your colleague or does your family member need you to be a parent, that is a nurturing parent, or an adult to give advice?
Do I understand my personality and who am I?
Okay, so as I said that first thing is watch yourself when you behave with people. Are there certain set of people with whom you're always in a specific ego state? That is one way of knowing that which is your dominant ego state. Another, as we have said that, watch yourself the moment you get angry, upset or irritated. Which ego state are you operating from? So maybe that is your dominant personality. Yes.
Another question from Miss Miss Mishra. I am childish by nature and write poems which make people cry. I am a 31-year-old and still pursuing my graduations, but sometimes it feels like it's pointless. I feel tired most of the time. What can I do?
Okay, then maybe you need to watch what are the other dominant personalities inside you. And in spite of doing this poetry or whatever, maybe this question needs to be handled on a personal level. Right now, I cannot comment much, Priyanka, about this.
Sure.
Maybe he can contact me through mail or whatever.
Sure.
Right? Yeah.
I have some questions. As Ashish is saying, when my manager keeps shouting and yelling at me, it tests my patience. So how do I handle so much mental pressure?
Okay, yes. So I know it is quite a pressure when somebody is shouting or scolding you. Now, the only thing is you will have to build on your adult. That, as I said, or I have been constantly saying this, keep being in your adult ego state, the matured ego state, can solve your major problems. Because see, the boss shouting or scolding is not in your control zone. How many times he's going to shout at you is not in your control zone. How long he's going to continue his shouting, that is also not in our control zone. The only thing that is in our control zone is how do I react or respond to it, right? The moment I get into any kind of my wrong ego states, it's just going to create more stress and aggression in me, because obviously, because he is the boss, I cannot express it to him. So if I create that wrong ego state, it's just going to build me up, and that pressure I'm going to release it the moment I get out of that cabin on my some of the colleagues or my subordinates, or I might throw all this aggression in my house, right? So the only thing that you can do is build your matured adult, who can just tell yourself that how you can keep calm. Yes, you are getting angry, but your adult will help you to release that anger in a much better ways, rather than doing it in a wrong ways with your other subordinates or with your family members, right? So building your adult would be the answer to this question.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I would request you to just flip to the slide where your email ID is there.
Okay, yes.
Okay. So we'll take a few more questions, probably 2 or 3 more.
Yeah.
If any subordinate does not obey to the orders at every occasion, this is not very rare, at every occasion they do not obey to the orders, then what is the way that you can resolve the situation?
Okay, a person not obeying the orders actually is having a rebellious child, which is dominant in them, right? So now, if you sit and talk to that rebellious child, we need to be assertive with them at times. As I said, there's no point in arguing, just be assertive and take appropriate actions, because generally discussions don't work with them. So you cannot sit and talk to them and just ask them, Ki, why are you doing this? That is not going to work. So you can simply be assertive, give them warnings, and then if necessary take a specific action, because these people know only this language. That's it.
Thanks, ma'am. Do you think a controlling parent is the reason of a rebellious child?
Yes, and rebellious child will never make it smooth with a controlling parent. They just cannot tolerate a controlling parent boss or a spouse or a friend or a colleague or a subordinate, and so goes with a controlling parent. They just cannot tolerate rebellious child, because a controlling parent wants a yes boss attitude wala person, and they just do not get it from the rebellious child. So having a combination of a controlling parent boss and a rebellious child can be a very very tricky, very stressful atmosphere.
Okay, so Sakshi asks, suppose in a team where a manager is strict, parent ego state, one of my subordinate state is adult ego state, and I myself, I am an adaptive ego state. How do I work?
See, now it is going to happen because, multiple people in the different multiple ego states. So you just have to go by the situation and how it is shaping up. So you need to just be aware that you have to constantly remain or shift into the good ego states only. Okay, because the moment you shift into the bad ego states, it can be a tricky situation. Because yes, suppose if it's a meeting going on, there are 10 different people. So when we say 10 people for the meeting, it means there are 30 people in the meeting. So obviously one is going to be in one state, one is going to be in another state. But as I said, if you want to reduce the conflicts, diffuse the conflicts, then being in your good ego states will always help you. So try doing that. So depending on the need, at times you can become a nurturing parent. Depending on the need, you can just become an emotional, stable adult, or you can be a natural child. Yes.
Someone is asking what kind of a behavior is the best for managers at workplace and family. So how do I behave with my family, and what kind of behavior should be depicted in my workplace?
uh, Anything in the good ego states. So suppose if I am in my office, definitely I can shift between my nurturing parent to my emotionally strong adult to my natural child. That also works very well. Suppose if I'm in my family and we are going out for a dinner. Now, when I'm going out for a dinner, I should not even be a parent, it should just be a child now, because there I'm going to enjoy. So maybe as a nurturing parent, I might simply still ask my child this question, how are your tuitions going? It was just out of concern. Okay, but now the child is not going to like it. The child will say, Arey, we have come here for dinner to enjoy, why are you asking me this upsetting question? So now, depending on the situation and the scenario, we have to decide which is the right state. Suppose if we are going for a picnic, then being in that natural state or natural child state is much more advisable than rather than being into any parent state or the adult state. So depending on the situation, we have to decide.
Okay, ma'am. So Abhinav Jha asks how to
Huh.
manage if a team member is ambitious.
Okay, over ambitious talks about the adult, obsessive adult, right? And these obsessive adults can be a little bit problem to handle. The only thing is, you need to just have a little bit of control over them, because, they are too very obsessed. So at times, nurturing parent can maybe of help to them.
How do I manage a manipulative manager?
Manipulative is again a commanding parent. Right. So a commanding parent always needs a yes person. He needs an adaptive child, or he needs an adaptive child only. Because a natural child also is going to be creative, which maybe at times they might not like, or they might be a little bit, funny types, or, fun loving types. So which a commanding parent does not like. So manipulative parent always requires a yes boss attitude. So you can just say a yes without refuting. You can put up with your ideas. Ki, sir, whatever you say is absolutely correct. I have really liked it. But, I was thinking about this particular issue. Can we do this also? So now what I do is, I have not used any words like, that he is wrong or whatever he's saying, I don't want to agree. I have appreciated his ideas, and in that now even I can use my idea. So being tactful with him can definitely work.
Okay, so we'll take this last one. How can we differentiate between ego, attitude, emotions? Most of us see that such things are interconnected.
Hmm.
Could you
See,
just clarify?
ego, attitude, and
Emotions.
okay, see, these three personalities are called as ego states because it has been taken from the Freud concept of id, ego, and superego. So let us forget that word ego over here. It just simply signifies the kind of a personality. So ego is basically, you can say, a commanding parent who feels that I am something and you have to listen to me. Or, you have to abide by whatever I say and I am always right. So that is ego. Ego says that I know it all and I'm more important and you have to respect me. Attitude is how I look at certain situations in my life. Okay, so like the COVID-19 is happening over there. Now, how do I look at this particular situation? Do I have a terrible negative attitude towards it, or I have a hopeful attitude towards it? Okay, fine, it is a disastrous situation, but definitely we are going to come out of it. So this is the attitude of how I look at things. And emotions is how do I feel? How do I feel about certain situations that are happening in my life, right? So this is the differentiation between the 3 points.
Okay, ma'am, that was our last questions. There are a lot of them, but due to time constraints, we are not able to address many of the questions. I hope this was a good session. Ma'am, your last takeaways for our audience.
Yes. So last takeaway is definitely transaction analysis is a super wonderful tool, which I would recommend as a psychologist to each one of you. Start working on it. Maybe today after listening to it, you might feel that it is a little bit difficult or it's very, complicated. It's not. Believe me, it's not. If you just go through the slides or if you go through the content, you will realize it's not, that difficult. Secondly, we generally look at people today. Maybe the childhood of that particular person was not that good, so today you might see a particular employee or your staff member who's staying in a good society and who's having a wonderful family, has all the luxuries, and then when he starts behaving erratic or when he starts shouting or throwing tantrums, we generally look at him and we feel, see, everything is so perfect with him, how does he behave like a erratic person? But maybe you never know, his childhood days were not that good as his present days. So please don't judge people from the way they behave today, because what they are behaving today has completely to do with something, how their childhood was, right? So transaction analysis will help you to understand them and help you to reduce the conflicts with them. So I guess on that last note, I would like to really thank each one of you who has listened. And as I said, if you have any further questions, you can always connect with me on this particular email ID. I would love to answer your questions. Thank you, Priyanka, and thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. With this, on behalf of Dr. Reddy's, I would like to thank Ms. Urjita for taking our time and taking us through this amazing topic. I'm sure we all have benefited out of this. I would also like to thank all the people who have joined in with us on this webinar, taken out the time from your busy schedules. And I would wish all of your days are filled with positivity and good health, because good health can't wait. Take care.